Okay, here is the translation of the provided text into, formatted as requested. At 88 years old, this man confidently states that his memory remains sharp, even when it comes to remembering a shopping list. However, it wasn't always this way. Once, his mind resembled a chaotic archive, where thoughts and memories were scattered like sheets of paper in disarray. Opening the refrigerator, he would be lost in thought as to why he was there. Heading to the bathroom, he would forget his intention as soon as he crossed the threshold. Conversations, names of loved ones, important dates, everything slipped from his memory, causing disappointment and shame. The hardest part was realizing that this could be an irreversible process, an inevitable companion of aging. It seemed his memory was leaving him, like receding hair or weakening leg muscles. But one day, a turning point occurred. A simple 3-minute habit, requiring no pills, complex devices, or trendy techniques, was able to change the situation. Just 3 minutes a day proved sufficient to clear the fog in his head. At first, the changes were barely noticeable, but after a week, he began to recall details that had previously escaped him. Words, faces, tasks, everything was returning to memory. Most importantly, he felt that his mind was his again, that he was no longer doomed to rely on notes, reminders, or someone else's memory. That's why he shares his experience, to convey to those facing similar problems that it's not the end. There are ways to improve the situation, requiring only a little consistency and willingness to try something new. Next, he intends to talk about his miraculous habit, how he discovered it, how he applies it, and why it works. He promises to explain everything step by step, without complex technical details, with simple and understandable examples, so that everyone can start practicing it today. The gradual deterioration of memory began with small things that could easily be dismissed as mere absent-mindedness. He would forget if he had locked the door, lose his train of thought as soon as he got up from his chair, search for glasses that were just on the table. At first, he laughed at himself, attributing everything to age and distraction. But inside, an inexplicable anxiety grew as these small failures began to accumulate, making him feel less and less like himself. What was once a sharp mind, capable of remembering details, dates, names, and entire conversations, now felt like a radio with poor reception. Sometimes the signal was clear, but more often he heard only confusing noise, a forgotten word, an unrecognizable face, a missed appointment. With each failure came a feeling that was hard to describe, a mixture of shame and sadness. The most painful moment was the day he forgot about his grandson's performance at school. They had talked on the phone, and his grandson enthusiastically told him about the upcoming event, hoping for his presence. He promised to come, but on the appointed day, he completely forgot about it. The call from his grandson's upset mother was a blow. He had no excuses, he simply forgot. After that conversation, his grandson's voice sounded different, without reproaches, but his silence hurt more than any words. That night, he couldn't sleep, remembering his father in the last years of his life and repeating to himself, "I hope I never become like that." But without realizing it, he found himself in the same situation. Forgetfulness, absent-mindedness, a sense of fleeting time. The hardest part was not the forgetting itself, but what came with it: uncertainty, fear, disappointment, and constant doubts. Did I say that, or just think it? Did I take my pill or not? These questions haunted him constantly. Am I repeating myself too often? Am I bothering those around me without realizing it? Gradually, a person begins to lose trust in themselves. And that's the hardest part, because no one teaches you how to age while maintaining mental clarity. No one warns you that decline doesn't happen suddenly, but creeps in unnoticed, penetrating everyday routines, moments of distraction, long pauses during conversations. And when you notice it, it has long since settled inside. But the most dangerous thing is to accept this state of affairs as inevitable, as if there's no turning back. The author himself went through this period, but then realized an important truth. The mind, like the body, needs exercise, stimulation, and fresh air. Despite the years lived, we are not doomed to complete loss of cognitive function. We just need tools, small habits, ways to dust off and awaken those parts of the brain that we thought had fallen asleep forever. It was this realization that gave hope for change. A common mistake many elderly people make is accepting memory decline as an inevitable part of aging, as if aging is synonymous with surrender. How often do you hear phrases like, "What can you do? Age takes its toll. It's normal at my age. My mind isn't what it used to be." These seemingly harmless comments are dangerous, turning into beliefs. And when a person believes that nothing can be changed, they stop trying, giving up without even starting the fight. The author thought so too, until he paid attention to his surroundings. He had friends who, at 65, 70, and even 80 years old, looked much more worn out than other people of the same age. The reason was that they had resigned themselves to a downward trajectory, considering forgetfulness an inevitable part of aging. One of them, Anthony, had always been an active person, but after retiring, he began to fade. He spent hours in front of the television, rarely went outside, stopped reading, justifying it by saying that he just doesn't remember anything. When he was offered to try something new, such as learning to use a smartphone or writing a memoir, he replied, "Why bother? I don't have the ability." Another friend, Peter, started talking less. At meetings, he was silent, barely smiled, and if someone asked him a question, he would say that he preferred to listen. At first, it was attributed to fatigue, but one day he admitted that he avoided conversations, fearing to forget a word in the middle of a sentence and find himself in an awkward situation. Many elderly people make the same mistake. They resign themselves, isolate themselves, and repeat the same routine as if there is nothing new to discover in the world. Without realizing it, they dull their memory because the mind, like any muscle, rusts without use, without challenges, and without new information, communication, and goals. They lock themselves in a comfort zone, which in reality becomes a cage, soft but still a cage. This is called passive aging, when a person allows life to carry them along rather than controlling it. It's when they stop learning, laughing, experiencing excitement and wonder when they believe that the world can no longer offer anything new. But there is also active aging, which is not about running marathons or going to the gym, but about an attitude to life, about small daily choices. Reading a few pages, walking and observing, participating in new conversations, asking questions, and maintaining curiosity. The author has met elderly people with brilliant minds who remember better than many young people. The difference is that they never stopped training their brains and never gave up. Therefore, it's important to realize that if you have convinced yourself of the inevitability of memory decline, then it's worth suspending that belief because it's not true. The fact that you're watching this video in search of answers and opportunities already says that you are on the right path, the path of active aging. No matter how old you are, 70, 80, or 90, it's never too late to reconnect with your mind, strengthen it, and recover what you thought was lost. If someone had told the author that something as simple as mindful breathing could help him restore his memory, he would have just smiled politely, but wouldn't have believed it. And yet, that's where it all started. He didn't find this information in a book or on the internet, but discovered it for himself by chance. One day, his granddaughter, a psychology student, noticed his absent-mindedness and asked if he was okay. He replied with a smile, "Sometimes I go into a room and can't remember why I came." His granddaughter thought for a moment and suggested, "Grandpa, have you tried taking pauses to train your attention? Just 3 minutes a day. It's called mindfulness. It's like exercise for the brain." He asked if it was meditation. His granddaughter replied that it was simpler and immediately taught him right on the sofa in the living room. She explained that every morning, before checking his phone or communicating with anyone, he should simply sit in silence, straightening his back and placing his feet on the floor. Then, for 3 minutes, focus solely on his breathing, feeling the air enter through his nose and exit through his mouth. If thoughts wander, gently bring them back to his breathing. To enhance the effect, he could imagine a scene that evokes a sense of calm and clarity, as if his mind is awakening. No strange rituals or complex techniques, just that. For the first week, he did it more out of love for his granddaughter than out of belief in the result. He sat on the edge of the bed, closed his eyes, and breathed. Sometimes he got distracted. Sometimes he found it hard to concentrate. There were days when he doubted whether he was wasting his time, but something inside him began to change. The changes were barely noticeable. It wasn't that he suddenly started remembering everything as before, but that he felt more present, more aware. He stopped walking around with his thoughts somewhere far away, started noticing details that had previously escaped him: the texture of the tablecloth, the ticking of the clock, the voice of his wife coming from the kitchen. One morning, without thinking, he got up, went to the kitchen, and, before opening the refrigerator, remembered that he had come for peach yogurt, not strawberry. It seemed like a small thing, but for him, it was a victory. In the third week, he began to notice that he remembered more names and conversations. He no longer had to ask his granddaughter where she was studying, he just knew it. Then he realized an important thing. It wasn't magic or a miraculous cure. It was something much more powerful. He had retrained his attention, and with attention came memory. Many people think that memory works on its own, like an automatic muscle, but that's not the case. Memory depends on the quality with which we live each moment. If you live distractedly, you won't remember anything, but if you're present in the moment, your mind records everything that is happening. This little 3-minute habit became a kind of reset button. Every morning, practicing it, he felt his mind organizing itself, as if someone was sweeping away cobwebs from his consciousness, making it cleaner. This doesn't require gadgets, paid courses, or expert knowledge. Only commitment. 3 minutes of life each day, and nothing more. It's important to understand that it's not about doing great things, but about consistently doing small things. If you succeed in this, then memory recovery will be closer than it seems. The cumulative effect was not long in coming. At first, he thought it was just a coincidence. He remembered the name of the new neighbor without asking, found his glasses without searching the whole house. Small things, details, but the days went by, and these details continued to accumulate. One morning, his wife asked him to go to the market for bread, milk, apples, and coffee. Previously, he would have written it down, fearing to forget, but this time he took a deep breath, repeated the list mentally once, and went without a note. He returned home with everything he needed. For him, it was like climbing a mountain, not because of the shopping list itself, but because of the feeling of confidence that he hadn't felt in a long time. He began to notice that he remembered more from conversations, no longer got lost when someone asked, "Do you remember what we were talking about the other day?" Yes, he remembered, even the tone of voice and the feelings behind that conversation. This also happened with his grandson. He told him something important about his studies, and a few days later, the author asked how the exam went. His grandson looked at him in surprise and said, "Grandpa, you remembered." That look and that little gesture were worth 1,000 words. At that moment, he realized that he was not just restoring his memory, but restoring connections, reclaiming his place. This began to reflect on his mood. He felt more cheerful in the mornings, more optimistic, as if he was walking with a purpose, not dragging his feet. He started sleeping better. Previously, he had trouble falling asleep. He would wake up with his head full of disjointed thoughts. Now, after breathing exercises, he fell asleep more peacefully, and his sleep became deeper. He woke up rested. His wife also noticed the changes. "You've been more cheerful lately. You even joke more." And it was true. He started telling bad jokes at the table again, like he used to, sometimes laughing to himself, remembering anecdotes from years ago that he thought he had forgotten. All of this silent rebirth, led him to one clear conclusion. He had recovered parts of himself that he thought were lost. After all, when you lose your memory, it's not just names or dates that slip away, but pieces of history and fragments of personality. And when they come back, it's as if you yourself are coming back. It wasn't an instant miracle, but rather a cumulative process, like raindrops filling a well. One day you realize that the well you thought was dry is full again. Thoughts became clearer, attention more stable. Most importantly, he stopped fearing forgetfulness because now he had a tool, a simple practice that tied him to the present and returned control over the situation. It changed his life. The question arises, how can such a simple 3-minute habit have such a significant impact on memory? It's not magic, but simple science, which the author will explain without unnecessary complexity. The brain, even at 80, 90, and older, never stops changing. This phenomenon is called neuroplasticity, that is, the ability of connections between neurons to strengthen, renew, and even form new ones. Previously, it was thought that this only happened in youth, but now it is known that the brain continues to learn if it is properly stimulated. That's exactly what this habit does. First, it's worth paying attention to breathing. During these 3 minutes, breathing should be slow and deep. Why is this important? Because slow, deep breaths better saturate the blood with oxygen, and oxygen-rich blood nourishes the brain. It's like giving fresh water to a plant that seemed withered. Neurons, small cells that allow us to think, remember, and feel, need oxygen to function well. When we breathe quickly and shallowly, as when we are nervous or in a hurry, our brain doesn't get what it needs. Slow, deep, and mindful breathing activates areas of the brain that often remain inactive, especially if we spend most of the day sitting or inactive. Secondly, mindfulness is important, that is, focusing only on what you are doing. During this short ritual, you don't need to think about yesterday or tomorrow, but simply breathe, feel your body, and visualize something that brings peace. This practice trains the mind like a muscle. Just as going to the gym strengthens your arms and legs, mindfulness strengthens your brain. And these are not just assumptions. Real research confirms this. For example, researchers from well-known universities, such as Harvard and Oxford, studied elderly people who performed short daily breathing and meditative exercises. The result? After just 8 weeks, they improved their memory, concentration, and even mood. Interestingly, the changes were visible on brain scans, as if certain areas were activated and looked younger. In particular, these practices stimulate 2 key areas: the hippocampus, which is a kind of filing cabinet for recent memories, and the prefrontal cortex, which helps us focus, make decisions, and think clearly. Over time, these areas may slow down, but they don't die, they just need stimulation. This 3-minute habit is like shining a light on them again. It is also proven that reducing stress improves memory, and this habit does this naturally. Mindful breathing reduces levels of stress hormones, calms the heart, organizes thoughts, and allows the brain to work with clarity. As a result, these 3 minutes saturate the brain with oxygen, reactivate inactive areas, reduce stress, improve concentration, strengthen memory, and, most importantly, this doesn't require any equipment, technology, or pills. Only your body, your breath, and your attention. The author is sure, if something so small can do so much, why not try it? Next, he intends to show step by step how to practice this habit at home simply, correctly, and at your own pace. So, we've discussed what this habit is, how the author discovered its effects, and how it works in the brain. But the question arises, how to start? What do you need for this? Where to do it? And how to make sure you don't forget about it by the 3rd day? Don't worry, because that's exactly what we're going to look at now. The first thing you need to know, if you know how to breathe, then you can practice this habit. No experience, athletic build, or even movement is required. Just 3 minutes of peace. The best time for this is morning, right after waking up, before checking your phone, turning on the television, or worrying about breakfast. Why? Because the mind is still fresh, not subject to distractions, and much more receptive. In addition, starting the day with mental clarity sets the tone for everything else. If you can't do it in the morning, then a good alternative is right before bed. This way, you help your brain relax and improve sleep. Some people even practice it twice, morning and evening, but it's enough to do it once correctly to start reaping the benefits. Where to do it? You don't need a special room for this, but you do need a quiet place where no one will distract you. This could be a bedroom, an armchair on the terrace, or even a bathroom. if that's the only place where you can be alone. Ideally, turn this place into your daily refuge, however modest it may be. It's important that it's a personal moment. What pose to choose? You can sit or lie down. If you're sitting, support your back, relax your shoulders, and place your hands on your knees. Close your eyes if you're comfortable with that. If you're lying down, stretch out on your back, arms at your sides. The main thing is that the body is relaxed, but at the same time remains alert. You don't need to strive for the perfect pose. Only comfort and presence are important. How long does it take? Just 3 minutes. You can use a clock, a timer, or just count your breaths. On average, 12 to 15 deep breaths take approximately the right amount of time. It's important to remember that 3 minutes every day is better than 15 minutes once a week. It is consistency that turns this habit into real change. How not to forget. Here are a few tricks. Tie it to an existing routine. For example, do it right after brushing your teeth or before your first sip of coffee. The mind will associate both actions and make it automatic. You can write a note and stick it in a prominent place, on the bathroom mirror, on the refrigerator, or on a nightstand. You can also set a gentle alarm with a friendly message, 3 minutes for yourself. Don't think of it as an obligation, but rather as a gift to yourself, a small moment of care for your brain. What to do if you can't do it on a certain day? Everyone has days when we are tired, sick, or simply not motivated. That's normal. In such cases, you can limit yourself to just 1 minute, taking 5 deep breaths, closing your eyes, and silently repeating a calming word. Thank you, I'm here, peace. Even if you can't complete the full practice, it's important to maintain contact with yourself and not break it. If you missed a whole day, don't blame yourself. Just start again the next day, as if nothing happened. Remember the phrase, if you know how to breathe, you can do it. It doesn't matter how old you are, what physical shape you are in, or what your past is. This habit requires neither strength, nor youth, nor perfection, but only asks you to be present in the moment. And believe me, 3 minutes a day can bring back what the years have slowly taken away. The author is not the only one whose life has changed thanks to this 3-minute habit. Noticing the changes in himself, he felt a strong need to share it with others. First, he told his close friends about it, then visitors to the day center, and even neighbors in the square. Some listened with curiosity, others with skepticism, but some decided to try. And here's what came of it. Mrs. Helen, 79 years old, was a lovely woman, although a little faded. Widowed several years ago, she spent a lot of time alone. One day she confessed, "Lately, I go into a room and don't remember why. I feel clumsy, as if I'm losing parts of myself." The author showed her this habit, and she started practicing it in the mornings. By the 3rd week, she called him excitedly and reported that today she easily remembered her daughter's birthday, which she hadn't done for many years. But besides memory, she was most impressed by the spark in her eyes. She seemed more present, more alive, as if someone had turned on the light in her gaze. Mr. Armand, 83 years old, was skeptical, stating that at his age nothing would save his head. But one day, confusing his grandson's name at a family gathering, something changed. He asked the author to teach him this habit and started practicing it every other day. Sometimes he forgot, sometimes he got distracted, but little by little he felt something settling inside him. A month later, he admitted that he had told his great-granddaughter a whole story without stumbling once, and his eyes shone with pride. The secret to success lies in consistency. Those who practiced it regularly, as a daily ritual, achieved the best results. Others tried it a couple of times and gave up. That's where the difference lay. Those who remained consistent improved not only their memory, but also their mood, clarity of thought, and even their relationships. Those who quit early said they didn't feel anything special. But this is not a magic pill, but rather watering a plant. If you water it every day, it blooms, and if you only water it when you remember, it withers. Over time, the author realized that this habit not only helps memory, but also restores relationships, meaningful conversations, and strengthens connections that had weakened due to forgetfulness. Imagine a group of elderly people, more attentive, more present, and more connected to their surroundings. Imagine lively conversations, card games where the question, "How did we play this?" is heard less often. Imagine visits from grandchildren without disappointed looks at repeated stories. When someone remembers better, everyone around them wins. Family, friends, caregivers. It's not just for you, but for those around you. After all, when an elderly person becomes more attentive, clear, and connected to the world around them, others feel calmer, closer, and more motivated. This is something that no medicine can give. If you've made it this far, the author thanks you not only for listening to his story, but also for allowing yourself to reflect on what many consider lost memory. Together, we have come a long way from forgetfulness to hope. He talked about the early signs of decline, about the frustration of a forgotten conversation with his grandson, about the sadness of looking at a shopping list whose contents are incomprehensible. But he also shared how a simple 3-minute habit can awaken what seemed forever inactive. Today, the author can confidently say that memory is not completely lost. It just needs to be awakened, like a lamp that has not gone out, but is only covered with the dust of time, routine, and resignation. This dust can be shaken off, and the light can be lit again. This doesn't require being young, having degrees, or expensive tools, but only 3 things: 3 minutes, a little silence, and a desire to reconnect with your mind. Therefore, the author offers a simple but powerful solution. Practice this habit for 7 days in a row. Just 7 days to breathe, focus, and visualize. Do it when you wake up or before you go to bed, in your favorite chair, with the window open or closed, whichever you prefer. The main thing is to dedicate 3 minutes a day to it. The author asks for nothing more. And then observe your feelings. Notice if you start remembering more names, if you feel more present in conversations, if you wake up with greater clarity. Sometimes the changes are subtle, almost imperceptible, but over time these small shifts open doors that you thought were closed. No matter how old you are, as long as you have 3 minutes and the will, you can get back what you thought was lost. Before saying goodbye, the author has one special request. If you decide to try this habit, leave a comment and share your experience. Did it help you? Did you feel different? Did you tell anyone about it? Perhaps what you write will reach someone else who feels forgotten. And perhaps, thanks to you, someone else will recover a part of themselves. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing, even for a moment, that there is still light inside you. Because there is. The author sends you big hugs, wherever you are, and reminds you, it's never too late to remember again.